Anfernee Simons is the Portland Trailblazers' best kept secret. With the increased role this season, Simons has completely broken out this year and appears to be a huge part of the Portland Trailblazers' long-term plans. But quickly before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy Sports, I make opinionative NBA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. But anyways, let's get into it.
Oh yeah, I work with the medics. I'm about to get you injected. I got a couple connections so I can get you prosthetics.
Anfernee Simons was drafted with the number 24 overall selection all the way back in the 2018 NBA draft by the Portland Trailblazers. And going into that year's draft, Simons was seen as a really talented player offensively, but he was also still pretty raw, and he was seen as somewhat of a project going into the NBA, as a lot of point guards typically are going into the league. And especially when the Portland Trailblazers drafted Anfernee, he was seen as a guy who probably wasn't going to get much playing time early on, but was going to get to learn behind a guy in Damian Lillard, which would be phenomenal for him. And then eventually when his time did come, he would start to get the minutes and potentially turn into a really good player for the Blazers. And that's basically exactly how Simons' career did end up for the Portland Trailblazers. Early on in his rookie season, he only averaged around 4 points per game on 44% shooting from the field, 0.7 rebounds, and 0.7 assists. Now, he only played 20 games that year, and most of the games that he did play were in the G League. But in Simons' second season with the Blazers, which was the 2019 season, he averaged around 8 points per game on 40% shooting from the field, 2.2 rebounds, and 1.4 assists. Now, this season, he was fully playing with the Portland Trailblazers main team, and although he wasn't necessarily putting up incredible numbers, he was showing a bunch of flashes of what he could potentially be long term, and there's a lot of Portland Trailblazers fans and just fans around the NBA very excited based on what they were seeing from Anfernee. He looked like a very talented scorer offensively. Anfernee was showing a lot of the things that people liked of him coming out of college, but he also improved upon certain aspects. He was turning into a really nice offensive player overall, but of course he wasn't necessarily getting all that many minutes, only averaging around 20 minutes per game, and of course he was playing behind Damian Lillard, and he still was very young, so his time wasn't necessarily there yet, but he was showing some very nice flashes in that 2019 season. In the 2020 season, it was basically more of the same. He averaged around 8 points per game on 42% shooting from the field, 2.2 rebounds, and 1.4 assists, basically identical numbers to what he put up in the 2019 season, but he basically was getting the same amount of minutes that year and basically played the same amount of games, and it was kind of the same story as that 2019 season where he was playing behind a guy in Damian Lillard and he was showing a ton of flashes, but he wasn't necessarily ready to get a bigger role. But during the 2021 NBA season, which is this season, Anfernee is completely breaking out. This year he's averaging around 17 points per game on 44% shooting, 2.6 rebounds, and 4 assists per game as well. And it's pretty apparent that Anfernee is a very, very talented player at this point, and Anfernee was actually able to get this bigger opportunity this season for a few different reasons. Was at the beginning of the year, Damian Lillard was just not playing well whatsoever, and then it turned out that he was actually injured and then he was out for the rest of the season, and due to those reasons, Simons was actually able to get a much bigger role this season, and he's showing that he's a very, very talented player and deserves the minutes he's getting. But this year when watching Simons, it's pretty clear that he's a very polished offensive player, and he really made a ton of improvements ever since getting drafted into the NBA. Starting with his three-point shooting ability, Anfernee has a really nice three-point jump shot. He has a great catch and shoot three-point shot. He has a really nice crossover into a three-point jump shot due to the fact that he has above average ball handling ability. He has a really nice sidestep and step back as well. And basically from that three-point range, Anfernee can do everything you would ever want, and he's also shooting over 40% from deep, so he's shooting it at a very high percentage as well. But now talking about his mid-range shooting ability, Anfernee has a pretty nice pull-up mid-range jump shot. Of course, he also has all the same abilities from his three-point range in terms of the catch and shoot, sidestep, step back, and crossover. He has a nice floater within his game as well, and overall his mid-range jump shot is pretty good, although he doesn't necessarily use it all that often. He more so uses his three-point jump shot. But now talking about his driving and finishing ability, I would say he was definitely pretty good at that as well. He has a pretty nice ability to finish around the basket with either hand, either his left or right, and just really elude whatever defenders in the paint. He also has a pretty nice bounce to him as well, and clearly has the ability to get some posterizing dunks from time to time, or really just using it to outlast whatever defenders in the air and finish around them with crafty layups as well. In terms of his passing and playmaking ability, of course I would say it's decent, but at the same time I would like to see it improve a little bit as time progresses, and I personally think he will do so. But of course he has the ability to somewhat run an offense at this point. I would say he can run the pick and roll / pick and pop pretty effectively due to his great scoring ability, and the defense just needs to focus on him a lot, and if they do focus on on him, he can easily just pass to whatever player's cutting all the way to the basket or maybe at the top of the key for a wide open 3-point jump shot. Whenever he's getting doubled or triple teamed, of course he has the ability to kick out to the open guy. And overall, I would say he's a decent passer and playmaker at this point, but going forward long term, of course you would like to see him improve upon that ability. And as I said before, I personally think he will. Now, the great thing about Anfernee is he's also a pretty good defender, I would say, as well, due to the fact that he's a great wingspan, a great size in general, and of course he's super athletic and can move very well on the defensive side. So in terms of individual defense, he's not necessarily a guy who's a phenomenal lockdown defender, but I would say he's a pretty good defender at this point who could potentially get better as time progresses as well, which is exactly what you want to see. And overall, when looking at Simons' game, I think it's pretty clear that he's a very well-rounded player in terms of his offensive ability, and you would expect it to only get better as time progresses, although it's very polished at this point. But what are my long-term expectations for Anfernee Simons? So it's pretty clear at this point, I think Simons is a very well-polished player and just a really talented player in general at this point, and I think going forward long-term, he's only going to improve due to the great work ethic that he really showed ever since getting drafted into the NBA, alongside with him being very professional about his lesser role due to the fact that Dame was on the team, obviously. And long-term, I could easily see Anfernee becoming an all-star type player at the very least, probably even better in my opinion. I just think he's very polished offensively. I would like to, of course, see him improve that passing and playmaking long-term, but if he's able to do that alongside with continuously improving his offensive game, I don't see why he wouldn't be able to, at the very least, be an all-star type player going forward. Now, I personally think for Anfernee to live up to expectations or be the very best player that he could, I think the Blazers probably would either need to trade him away or need to trade Damian Lillard away. And the only reason why I say that is because potentially they could work decently together, but the reason why I say that is I think Anfernee just needs the ball in his hands a lot more than just being an off-ball guy to live up to those expectations. And if Dame was on the team, of course the ball would be in his hands a lot of the time, and it would just be a difficult mismatch between the two guys. But if you were to theoretically trade Damian Lillard away, you're at the very least going to get 3 first-round picks alongside with at least one pretty nice young player as well, and you could use those draft picks to draft some nice players going forward, and you could build yourself a pretty nice young core that way, alongside with some of the decent players they already have on their team already. And I just think that would be a pretty nice path for the Blazers to take long term. But even if they didn't want to trade away Dame, I still think they could be pretty good. I just don't necessarily think that Anfernee could potentially get to the level that he could if Dame was still on the roster. But who knows, we'll see what happens going forward. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you guys think Anfernee could potentially get to that all-star level player long term, or do you think he can get even better, or do you think he won't be as good as that? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these 2 videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.
Dosage. Oh yeah, I work with the medics. I'm about to get you injected. I got a couple connections so I can get you prosthetics. Hope you can't go where I'm